Peter Drucker, who is arguably one of the top business thinkers of the past century, said that the purpose of a business is to create and then keep a customer. So think about the implications that has for all of us working today, regardless of what position we're in, regardless of where we want to go or where we've been. There are two non-negotiable things that we need to focus on, and that could be the key to or the lock on our future. And that is, number one, creating and keeping a customer for ourselves. So how do we get someone, potential clients, to want to hire us? And how do we get potential employers to want to hire us if we don't own our own business? Because your average employer has to deal with an endless sea of candidates, and a lot of them look exactly the same. So how do we stick out amongst employers as well as clients? And I've had the privilege of working with top managers in multiple positions all over the world. And the ones that I respect the most seem to agree on the following 4 points. And that is, if you want to be the most hireable option available, you need to focus on, number 1, higher purpose, number 2, inspiration, number 3, reinvention, and number 4, you need to be eclectic. Spelling out the acronym HIRE, which is convenient, isn't it? Well, yeah, you're welcome. So let's take a look at each one of these 4 elements and dive into it just a little bit. Higher purpose simply means, what are you committed to, and is what you're committed to the same thing that your employer is committed to? Because if you take a look at any brand throughout the world that dominates in their space, logos and name brands that mostly anybody in the world would recognize, what you're looking at is congruency between the message and the experience that they deliver to the customer base, which creates certainty. And certainty, because it's associated with safety, ministers to one of the greatest human needs that the customer base has, and therefore they can trust that brand enough to patronize them over and over and over again. So if you're not committed, well, what it tells the potential employer is that discipline, willpower, and basically trying your best only goes so far. People who get up early in the morning and work late into the night and constantly outperform other people, they're more than just disciplined. They are committed to something that's personally important to them. But if that's not also what your company's committed to, well, you get incongruent experiences, which decreases certainty, and that doesn't build trust, and that's not very good for your customer base. That makes you high risk. The second component is inspiration. Inspiration, translated from Latin, literally means to breathe life into. People who are inspired, who are not simply going to work to make a living, but to make a difference. They infect other people. They infect the people within their company, so you lift up your team, and aside from lifting up your team, you attract people towards you because they feel incredible when they're around you. You become a purveyor and a dispenser of hope and opportunity, and that's a great person to have on your team. And the third component is reinvention. In what ways are you going to reinvent yourself continually over and over so that when a company or a client invests in you, that investment appreciates rather than depreciates, which makes you obviously a great investment. Eric Hoffer, the great philosopher, said that the learner shall inherit the earth, where the learned will be perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Nobody wants to be in that position. And finally, eclectic. What's very unique or different about you? Because novelty is an indispensable aspect of interpersonal dynamics amongst human beings. It's what our brain responds to, aside from reward and aside to threat. And if you're thinking, well, God, I don't know what's very interesting about me, how do I identify that? Well, that's the wrong question. The right question is, what stories and patterns do you run in your head about your behaviors in a work situation that stop your unique attributes and what makes you a really interesting, engaging person from coming to the forefront of every interaction? Because there are no boring people. Well, no, actually, there are boring people, and some of them are very, very boring, but they're only a few. So the odds are that the chances are overwhelmingly in your favor. You're not one of them. So assuming you're not one of them, what is specific to your personality that when you're living authentically, you create magnetic charisma in any environment you put yourself in. So again, what's your high purpose? In other words, what are you committed to? What are you inspired by? And has that affect other people? How do you plan to reinvent yourself over the next 6 months, 1 year? And what's your unique aspect of your personality that nobody can duplicate? Because we can always tell the difference between a copy and an original.